Good morning. Deb, if you can hear me, you need to. Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Super.
Okay.
Thank you. Can you see me all right?
I'm sorry, what?
Can you see me all right?
Yes, I can.
Super. Thank you.
So I'm just waiting for a few more board members before I let everybody else in.
No, that's fine. Would you have somebody after maybe Amber after the meeting shift your documents that were in the newest versions of your documents to the Dropbox file? So that, because that's where I go for all the old stuff as well.
Yeah. No, I that just
problem.
occurred to me. So
It's okay, and literally, there's no fault finding. I mean, I woke up this morning and thought, I don't have the dial-in stuff.
right.
Anyway, thanks.
Oh, I think this is Grace.
Perfect.
Is that Grace coming in?
Yes, that's Grace M. Roberts.
Okay. I think she's muted.
Muted and no video.
Yeah.
There she is. She's coming. Hi, Grace.
Howdy,
Your video is off. Is that intentional?
I'm getting there.
Okay, no worries. Good morning.
Good morning. Am I on now? No, I'm not.
No.
Hang on.
We will.
Okay.
Yay.
Yay. Good morning.
Morning. Oh, let's go.
Just the three of us? We don't have a quorum.
Well, we don't have a quorum. So
And I apologize ahead of time. When I read on this small PC, I have to do something like this. So I go into the thing, so I apologize.
I'm still
Waiting for.
waiting for Nina.
Yeah.
See a bunch of other people, but I don't see Nina yet.
So Deb, you're the controller of the Zoom, right?
In theory, yes.
Okay. So you'll turn people on, and I guess the one that we want to, so you'll see the hands raised. The one I want to make sure we turn on is, I guess Virginia wants to speak for the Friends when we get to that topic.
Yeah.
I just wanted
Your
to make,
meeting.
I know, I wanted to make you aware.
Well, Grace, do you want to take, because you can share, you can co-host the meeting if you want to take control.
That's okay. I've got enough on my plate. I'll let Deb, I'll just ask you, Deb, to be sure to turn it on when the time comes.
Okay.
I'm going to send Nina a little text.
Unless is she Bear Creek?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Is
she on?
There she is.
There she is.
Oh, hi, Nina. You've
Nina,
changed.
You are
You're
muted.
looking
Nina.
good. That is St. George, right? Can you hear me, St. George? Can you hear me?
That's right.
I think can hear me.
Well, we got to get him to unmute herself and get George to unmute the thing and go from there. That's probably.
Oh, George can't hear me, but he knew we were here.
Yeah. Oh, here she comes.
Morning, Nina.
Hello. Hello.
You guys
Okay, Ready, let's
If
go.
you're ready, I'm going to admit everybody, okay?
Okay. Okay. You ready, Deb?
I am.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. It is 8:33. And present today are Nina Lentz, Secretary, Peter Stalker, Treasurer, Grace Robertson, Vice Chair, and Mark Hendrickson has an unavoidable conflict and is not able to attend today. So the three of us directors are present, which represents a quorum. All right. First on the agenda today is adoption of the agenda. Before we move to adopt the agenda, I would just like to comment that in our advanced planning calendar, we were intended to look at library statistics in January. And it's logical that we not be doing that now. The COVID has really upset the value added of looking at those statistics. And I recommend that of course we're bypassing them today because it's not useful. But Deb, I'd like to just recommend that we look at somehow finding some useful value added statistics for our July meeting in light of COVID. I know our traditional statistics are no longer appropriate, but could we just look to ensure that we have something to look at in July when it comes up next on our agenda?
Okay.
And beyond that, do I have a motion on the agenda?
I'll move it.
A second? Nina?
Oh, I seconded. Sorry,
Wait,
it's not loudly enough,
okay.
apparently.
I guess there's just the three of us today, so,
I'll speak
okay.
up.
Nina seconds, motion, any comments, further discussion?
Nope.
Okay, vote for the motion.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is our public comment. And because we have a huge agenda today, we're not going to let that go on more than 5 minutes today. I open the meeting for public comment. Okay, let's move on. Correspondence report. We have linked to the agenda. I believe there's 9 total items on the correspondence report.
Grace,
Yes.
Suzanne has her hand raised. I don't know if that means public comment or not. Yes?
Oh,
Okay, I cannot see that. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Did not mean to bypass you. Okay. Suzanne?
Okay, thank you so much. I wasn't planning on speaking this morning. However, I had another encounter yesterday on my subdivision road with a neighbor. And I just couldn't help but share that story and my ongoing concern. My name is Suzanne Morlock, and I spent 26 years working in 3 different libraries, the bulk of that at the Teton County Library. We moved back into our house this November after me doing some creative projects out of state for a number of years. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around what is happening here. And I spoke pretty spontaneously last month about my concerns. For anyone who's ever worked in a public library, there are a million red flags that have gone up. And I want to believe that the leadership of the library has the best interests of all of us in mind. However, there's a lot of things that have occurred which point to other things. It has caused me to not have trust in the leadership at the library. There's been a statistic that's been floated around quite a bit, that there have been 7 directors in 5 years. It's actually more dramatic than that. We've had 5 directors since 2019. Dawn, Sid, Ari, Oscar, and now Deb. Okay, so I'm not here to debate or try to analyze what has brought us to this point. But when I walked on my subdivision road yesterday and bumped into my longtime neighbor's son, who I've known since he was about, maybe 6, who somewhat grew up in our library and who was just admitted to an extremely prestigious school on the West Coast. I've bumped into him twice before with his mom, and they've both been pretty mute when we got around to talking about, the library and that kind of thing. They just backed away and had to, well, we've got to go now kind of thing. Well, yesterday I was able to find Bobby on his own with his 2 dogs. And he encapsulated, I think, what many people are starting to feel about what has transpired at the library over the last few years. What he told me was that it's become mediocre, that we've created something that is very serviceable and perhaps in line with some bigger goals that the county has, but is it truly serving our community? Isn't this about the children in our community? Isn't this about enriching the people in our community in ways that are more innumerable than we can even describe here today? This is about the whole community. I feel as if there are some really key pieces that are missing. I would love to be helpful. I don't want a job, but I'm deeply, deeply concerned. I don't know if you've had a chance to see the latest letter from one of the library professionals in this community. Allie Gillen recently sent a letter to the county commissioners and also sent it, I believe, to all of you. I would encourage you to look at goal number 2. I'm sorry to say that, but I really believe that we need to take a hard look at this. It's been 3 months since Oscar was fired, and I think it's time that we come clean and all of this sort of opaque avoidance, political posturing on the part of some of the local folks is just all fine and good. But I think it's time for us to cut to the chase, stop wasting taxpayer money and figure this thing out. So I say this with all due respect. I'm just exasperated, as are so many people who have spent time at the Teton County Library. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Susan. Appreciate the time and effort you take to help us. Anyone else? Okay, moving on. So coming to the minutes next on the agenda, the minutes. Those minutes, this month's minutes for the December 17th minutes are briefer than usual for various circumstances. In the future, I think our intent is to capture key discussion points in the minutes beyond what was captured this time. But I went back for myself and looked at all of my notes from the December minutes, and I did not see anything that I felt needed to be added or captured that wasn't. I would like to ask, did any of the other board have anything that they wanted captured in the minutes beyond the motions and what was in there now?
I'm fine. I'd like a slightly richer version of what the minutes are, other than we met and here are the topics. So, but yes, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, we have a new administrative assistant on board at the library. Is that correct, Deb?
It is, and she's been here exactly like 7 days. So
Okay, but she will be helping us with the minutes in the future.
yes, she will be able to do that.
Okay, so I would just like to capture here that in the future, we want to make sure we capture key discussion points in the future. And Nina, did you have anything to add?
No,
Okay.
I reviewed them. Thanks.
All right. So can we have a motion on the minutes, please?
I move adoption of the minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Further discussion? Okay. Then let's take a vote, please.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries. Consent agenda. Primarily financials this month and includes a mid-year look at our financials for the month. Would anyone like to pull anything? I'd like to pull the financials, please. Anyone else?
I'm happy with you pulling the financials. That's fine.
Okay, there's very simple comment on the financials. Is I really like seeing the foundation numbers in the financials. That is helpful and valuable, I think. So appreciate you adding those to the financial reports. However, I appreciate seeing the reimbursements from the foundation, but I question how much we need to see that on a monthly basis.
Well, I actually, Grace, I have a view towards that. I think it is, in the past, we've had the expenses incurred for reimbursable expense, for reimbursable items from the foundation. And the income is not showing up in our income statement. And I actually think it's very clear to show both the reimbursement, the revenue side of that, and the expense side of that. There will be a timing issue, but I do think, and maybe it makes sense more on a quarterly basis, but since we only produce monthly and year-to-date financials, I do think it's appropriate to have it because it allows us to match the line item expense with the revenue that comes in for that.
So do you feel that we need the 7-page report with detail in it, or do we just need the bottom line?
No, we need the lines. We just need the line item. And I think this first one we are explaining because we haven't shown this before, but I think on an ongoing basis, as having this be part of a line item on our revenue side is appropriate.
Okay, good. So that was my only comment on the financials and the consent agenda. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the December financial narrative and documents?
I'll move that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Vote?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, further discussion? No. Vote? Anyone have a aye?
Aye.
Okay, and so moved. All right, getting into a little more complex matters from the board staff and liaisons. Starting with the director's report. Deb, what would you like to tell us about that?
And I get what you're saying, Grace, initially about how it's difficult to look at statistics. So all I did was sort of look at a bigger picture, a few items. I didn't go in depth into every statistic, but just really kind of wanted to capture some of what's happening and a little bit of just a picture overall that circulation, is gradually picking up. Hasn't returned to pre-COVID levels, but it's definitely returning. So foot traffic, you saw picked up, and you saw that that's because we started using the door counters again. So we're capturing all the folks who are coming in for curbside, all the people who are coming in to use the Book Nook, which we weren't capturing before. We were literally only counting the people who were allowed in with their reservations or as a walk into the actual wings. So just really noticing that and how that's happening. Just pointing out that, the persistent question we have around being able to use the study rooms, and we sure wish we could. I just don't think, as long as the county continues to be in the high risk, in the red phase, that it's going to be a possibility. Maybe not even in the orange. It's largely an air circulation issue.
Is there
sort of
something
trying to
that,
explain what happens there.
Deb, is there something that we could do on a temporary basis for circulation in those rooms, or is it really just, I'm sure you've had Kevin look at it. Is there something, I don't know if there's an airflow thing that we could do on a temporary basis? I mean, has Kevin looked at this stuff to see?
We have talked about it. I mean, I'm happy to ask him again. Part of the challenge is, if you've been in the facility, you've seen that there's stuff stored in those rooms
Right.
too. And then we'd kind of have to look at, well, how many do you open? And then because that adds to that 15-minute cleaning schedule,
Right.
in between. So, and I know from some confined spaces, I mean, there are different protocols for confined spaces versus
Right.
there's more open spaces. And so it might be, you can only use it every other hour.
Well, I guess with Vita going into the auditorium, if they're going to go into I mean, how's our auditorium use right now?
Well, we haven't really been using it. We had it blocked out for a few programming things like story time, but of course, story time and they're not occurring because of the gather and household only recommendation. We were talking, we've had lengthy conversations with public health about the library possibly being a site for vaccination clinics. And so we'd actually blocked the auditorium out, like all the way through the end of May. But we were bumping up against the already existing library Vita program. And the health department needs to leave their stuff set up. It's so much stuff they have to set up. So they're actually going to start, I probably shouldn't say where they're going to start because they might not have publicly released this, but they found another spot for their next round of vaccinating seniors. But we're still in conversations with them about using the library auditorium or parking lot for some mass vaccinations. So
I think it's worthwhile asking Kevin to come back, because I think even if it's 1 or 2 rooms that we could open up, just having something rather than nothing, if we can do it, is great. If we can't do it, completely understandable. But I just think, as this is a changing situation and we may be here for a while anyway, it'd be nice to understand what our options are, if any.
right. And there's also a little piece, which is, I know part of the reason people like study rooms is because they're quiet. It's kind of quiet in the library right now,
Yes.
only because there's just not that much foot traffic, which I don't blame people. I mean, I only go the places I need to go. But I will talk to Kevin.
Super, thank you.
Okay. So did you have more on your report that you wanted to talk about, Deb?
Just letting you know what's going on with the time card transition. We're still finding a couple little glitches, and some of us are self-included are still getting used to punching in and punching out. So, we're there. As you already mentioned, Amber is on board as the administrative assistant. She is awesome. She has an incredible eye for detail. So I'm really excited about her ability to really keep us straight that way. We're currently advertising for the administrative services manager. So far, I think I've received a total of 8 applications and have some good candidates for potential interviews. I also mentioned, and I know this is going to come up during the Friends report, that I've been looking at the volunteer coordinator position. And I think, as you saw, I mean, understandably, there's not really any volunteer hours for library programs like adult programs, youth programs, all of those, just because most of that stuff is occurring online. And so Maria and I talked about this, and, as she's, sort of even clarified, she's been a little bit more like a library assistant than a volunteer coordinator in the past several months, just as a function of, what's sort of changed. So because I'm really, as I've said, in the last couple of meetings, I'm really committed to keeping people employed here. I've shifted a few more hours in her job description to working on the desks. I think it's a total of 6 hours. And again, this is in an effort to keep the position at its full hours, so I don't have to reduce the hours, and so she wouldn't potentially lose any benefits by having a reduction in hours. Full disclosure, and I know the Friends are going to speak about this, I know that this was a bit of a surprise to them, and I think it's they're still trying to understand like exactly how this impacts what they do. So
The Friends are meeting, they have a board meeting next week, I
that's
believe.
correct.
Are you planning on being there?
The library director does attend the Friends board meetings in the same way that the library director attends the foundation meetings. In every org chart I've ever seen, as long as I've been here and even after, the library director has always been the liaison to the foundation and to the Friends board.
Okay, thank you.
So Deb, I know you have no crystal ball, but as best we can tell, we anticipate that someday the volunteer activity is going to pick up again, or is what is happening now a temporary measure as best you can tell at this point?
I think it's temporary. I mean, I really think that, you know, once we're all out of all this red and orange, you know, phase, and once we're really able to have more programs on site, and once people really feel comfortable being in other buildings and facilities, I think that the demand for volunteer hours is gonna come back up. They might be doing things differently. You know, I mean, I suspect some of the things that we're doing now may well continue, like some of the take-home kits that we're preparing in lieu of having a craft or an activity here at the library. We're preparing more take-home kits. Well, that takes time. So that's a great place for volunteers to be stepping in. So I anticipate, you know, we'll be using them again. We'll be using them, you know, perhaps just as much as ever once everybody's comfortable being back in facilities like the library.
Okay. Okay, so we'll have further discussion later in the agenda with the Friends coming on. All right, anything else on the director's report? Oh, I have two questions for you, Deb, on the director's report. Why is circulation so significantly higher in Alta? What are they doing in Alta that's causing that, or what is driving that? And I know you're a resident there, so maybe you have a really good feel for it.
You know, it's every time I look at that, I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, some of it could be, of course, perhaps more, and I don't have the exact answer to this, so I'm just sort of speculating. Alta does get used frequently by out-of-county residents. So there are quite a few Idaho patrons who use the Alta Library. Even as wonderful as the Valley of the Tetons Library is, there's still quite a few people who use the Alta Library, just because part of it, it's right next to the Alta ski track. And if you saw how busy that ski track was, I think people are combining a lot of that activity there, you know, doing that. And, you know, Eva's a good librarian. Not that we don't have good librarians over here, but.
And so there's no particular initiative or activity that the library is doing that's causing that. It's just the environment. And
I think it just might be the environment.
okay. Okay. And then
maybe we have nothing else to do in Teton Valley except read. We don't have all the wonderful advantages of over here. So.
And then we don't see much these days on the teens in the reports. I went back and looked at a few of the old. Do we just have, and I know that there was very little participation by teens, a trend in that direction. What are we doing with respect to teens, please?
You know what, I'll include that next month because I want to share with you a proposal that Laura Langberg has brought forward around, it's called Discord. And I am not going to do a great job of explaining it, but it's an open chat forum for teens. It is moderated. So, you know, and they have a specific set of rules, but she has really been very proactive about this, and it is being done in quite a few other libraries. So she didn't make this up, but she's been following what's happening with teens. And I'd be happy to share more with you. We just haven't gone, I would say, completely whole hog on announcing that yet. So we're still in the trial phase, but.
Well, I for one would really like, and I know, let me preface this with, I know that we compete mightily for the time and attention of our very busy teens. I know that, so, but I would really appreciate seeing us improving our focus, and maybe that could be our staff report out, or maybe at the beginning of our next meeting, Laura could speak to us, whatever you think is best, but I'd like to make sure that we're doing everything we can for the teens, and however you'd like to present that to us. Okay? Anyone else? Any more director comments? Okay. Moving on. TCL Foundation report. Comment?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Nina.
I have no comments other than robust as usual, and the foundation hasn't had a meeting recently. That will occur next week, so I will report out to fellow board members about that, and then let's put 2020 in the books. Went very well.
I certainly enjoyed mine. My package or whatever.
My kids really love the little, they had, I don't know if this was in everybody's, but they had a little ball that was kind of a mix of a Christmas cracker and confetti or streamers. Anyway, they love that. So anyway, I digress. That, and I think Pauline would prefer not to have to speak today. So.
Okay, well, I enjoyed the package also, and I guess we just covered both. Pauline doesn't have anything to say today, so the foundation report will move on. And Nina, you just covered the foundation liaison report. So we are now at the MOU for HR services on the agenda. And I do have something to say about that.
Excuse me, could we go back? I think we skipped over the Friends, and I know that the Friends want to be able to share.
It's the last item on the matters from board staff and liaisons on the agenda. It's 2 more items from now.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay.
I would suggest, as it's coming up now, that that it go after the MOU, the Friends have their report, and we leave director to the end if we can.
That'd be great.
Okay. So we'll do the MOU now. Okay. We have heard many concerns from the community and directly from the library staff regarding our hiring processes in the library. Both because of those concerns and because it's overall good practice in general. And by the way, the county agrees with this. The board is requesting that the library, Deb Adams, and the county, Julianne Fries, with the assistance of board member Peter Stocker, clearly define and evaluate the processes, timelines, roles and responsibilities regarding HR support to the library. We're expanding that to be more than just the hiring process. That is the major, most of the major support items like benefits administration, assistance with workman's comp, investigating workplace complaints, etc. So we'll let you define what all is encompassed in major support to the library. And what would be envisioned here is that when this review, documentation, definition, evaluation of processes, timelines, roles, and responsibilities is complete, that the county attorney will be requested to assist in drafting an MOU for presentation to the board. And the people involved have said that they think they can have this done by March. I'm going to soften that a little bit and say, let's target March. If it moves into April, that'll be fine. And so I would like to have any discussion appropriate on that or pertaining to that. Peter, you're on board with participation there?
Wholeheartedly. I think it's something that will be good to have more clarity and where and is always good. So I think absolutely.
And Deb?
Oh, absolutely. I think it would be just really good for the library to have this in place. And I think it's just a sort of a natural growing pain from where we were when I started 30 whatever years ago. So it makes sense for us to really be clear about, you know, what the responsibilities are, what the actual support is, just so that we're transparent to people so they understand how things happen and where and how the library continues to be responsible in these areas.
I come from a corporate background, and process management is really a key aspect of management. And this to me falls well into that category. Just want to make sure that this is not only documenting the process, but also evaluating it for, is it appropriate? Is there a way to improve it? Is it timely, et cetera? So this is not just documenting it, but also looking at improving it as appropriate and taking into account some of the comments we've received. Julianne, I see, is on the line and she hasn't put up her hand to speak. So I'm imagining she doesn't have any further comment. Okay, so we will proceed with developing eventually an MOU for HR services. Next on the agenda is director recruiting, a very important topic.
Grace,
And
per Nina, could we switch this? Could we do the Friends report right now, please? And then do
oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Nina. All right, Friends report first. Is that okay? I see Virginia. Virginia, are you ready for that? Is Virginia speaking today? You're going to have to unmute yourself, Virginia. Virginia?
Wait a minute.
I hear you.
Okay.
There we go.
Yes, I had unmuted myself when I thought I was on the agenda and then somehow
Okay.
it got muted again.
So this is a bit of a continuation, but the Friends report includes their regular monthly activities. But in addition, they've written a letter and they would like to speak to that letter today. Welcome, Virginia. We don't often have Friends on our agenda and we're happy to have you.
Thank you
So
very much.
what would you like to say?
So my name is Virginia Adler, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Friends of Teton County Library Executive Board. The volunteer coordinator, an essential person serving on our board, has been told she no longer can attend our meetings. This change dramatically impacts the effectiveness of our board of directors as the volunteer arm of the library. The volunteer coordinator is the glue that connects the library with the volunteers. It is vital the Friends Board be apprised prior to any changes affecting our operations, and those changes be agreed upon by the Friends members. We thank you for reading our previous letters. We've actually incorporated two to the board, different board members, and for your understanding of our issue. And I'm hoping those letters can be included in the record. We certainly, I'm just going to say, we have been very active as volunteers. We helped put together those packets that you so admired for the moving on to 2021 as one example. And we've been working with the foundation quite closely to help them with things that need managing. But thank you for your time and consideration of our issue.
Virginia, let me just be really clear. You understand the decrease in volunteer hours at this point, and that Deb is reassigning, as she reported earlier, to utilize the personnel for their available hours. So your issue primarily is attendance at board meetings. Is that really the bottom line, Virginia?
Yes, I mean, our volunteer coordinator is still organizing our list. We're still trying to recruit new volunteers as a nominating committee chairperson for our board. I'm also recruiting new members on the board. Every single member that we have 3 wonderful candidates that will be voted on at our January meeting next week. All of them have praised Maria up and down in terms of her people-person relationships, how much she cares about the volunteers. She has been very clear about volunteers not coming into the library if they feel unsafe, but many of us have been volunteering for the Book Nook with our safety shields and everything else. But we're still supplying books to the airport. We're still supplying books in the community to our little free libraries. It's not like we're not active. And certainly we've put in quite a few hours, and more hours than were true last December, as I mentioned in one of our letters, even though the number of volunteers has decreased. And I have to plead guilty to not often reporting my volunteer hours, so I need to do that myself. But I think having her spend 2 hours 6 times a year at our meetings is critical to our operation in terms of communication. Our volunteer coordinator is so well informed of the community, so caring about our volunteers and concerned about each and every one of us. We need to have her input at our meetings.
Grace, may I say something, please? Grace?
Yes,
May I
yes,
say-
Peter,
Yeah.
please.
So Virginia, thank you for bringing this to our attention. As you know, we are trying to keep a fairly defined line between matters of staff other than Deb and us. I think I understand the issue, and I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. The staffing decisions have to be in Deb's hands, and I'm hoping that she will process this, and when she's at your board meeting next week, that you guys can have a fruitful discussion. I want to make it clear for just the 3 board members that are on this, plus the community members that are on this. Our role is really not to get into this kind of staffing decision. It really is the director's role here. But I appreciate, Virginia, and it's not to minimize your concerns at all. It's just trying to keep to what we are appointed for and stay out of what we're not.
I appreciate that. And we certainly will be discussing with Deb at our next board meeting what kinds of measures we can take to make this work.
Yep.
Not having been forewarned of it put us in a very awkward position. And the decision seemed to have been made without our input at all. And we have a very large number of volunteers. All of us need to know about changes that happen that will impact our effectiveness. That's what we're really concerned about.
Absolutely. And you know what? The Friends is are an incredibly helpful and essential part of what we do. So I want, all of us want this to work as smoothly as possible so that everybody can, function to really make 1 + 1 = 5 here. So.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
I'll own that my timing might not have been the best. I can own that. And that we didn't have the smoothest discussion about it, and that we could have figured out a better timeline for it. So I can own that. And we can talk about what's the best way, like you said, what's the best way to get the information that you need from Maria.
If we are good, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You already had said, Deb, that you'll be attending our meeting as usual. Can Maria be attending our meeting next time, since her job description is changing, and she should, I think, have input that we friends can hear so that we can better understand all the issues that have been put on the table to make us fully aware and bring us up to speed on what is happening.
Is it okay if I talk with Kelly and Lori as they're setting the agenda? Because maybe we can figure out a good way for this that we're really time efficient in terms of getting everything that you guys need from Maria. So just like in this, so she doesn't have to sit through a 2-hour meeting, but if we can maybe front load the agenda with what we need from Maria. So is it okay if I talk with Kelly and Lori about that?
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like next meeting is really critical to working through this. And friends, would you please report out in your next month's report to the board where you stand on this? We would like to hear the closure on it. Okay. Thank you. Moving on. Renewal of the HVAC maintenance contract.
We need to talk about the director.
Oh, I'm. Oh, I don't do well when you change my plan. I'm sorry.
I saw it and I should have changed it formally, so I apologize.
That's okay. Yes, very important subject. And the reason Nina is talking to it is the board has asked that Nina lead the director recruiting process and activities. Several reasons for that. One of which is we know that this will extend out into the future, probably beyond our current chairman, Mark Hendrickson's term on the board. He's through with the board at the end of June. And we know that the director, whether it's the actual hiring or the onboarding of that new director, goes beyond that. Mark has asked that we have someone else do the chair of this job so that there will be continuity. And Nina was elected. And so I will let Nina take it from here on what we're doing on director recruiting. And she will be reporting out to the board on a monthly basis on this subject in the future. Go ahead, Nina. Gotcha.
Well, this is likely the most important thing I will ever do for the library. So to say that I am nervous is an understatement. I've spent my time trying to learn I statements, but we as a board recognize that, and we want to ensure as open and transparent process for everyone involved. We will do that as much as we can, and I have had this or have been notified of this leadership role for about a week now. So I hope that you will give me a little luxury today to, or just a little wiggle room at this point. So essentially, there are certain tasks that we know we will need to take care of. And I apologize, my notes are down here, so I won't do a great job of looking at all of you. First off, we're going to, I think the first thing that we can commit to at this point is that the entire board will be involved in the selection committee. Essentially, there will not be a selection committee. It will just be the board working together as a group. Traditionally, this has been taken on by one or two people. And at this point, I think the board would find it helpful and useful to utilize all the manpower we have in going through this process. So the entire board will be involved. The entire board will see every application. The entire board will determine questions and interviewing, those types of activities. This presents a challenge for all of us because we we'll have to do much of that in public. So that challenges us to be thoughtful, and when we hold meetings, what subjects are up for discussion in public, and what subjects will just have to be done in an executive session. I don't want to speak today in absolutes about what will be in public and what will be in executive session. I can speak to a few things just as an example, because I know there will be questions about it. So certainly we will not talk about any candidates' attributes in public. We would want anyone to feel comfortable applying for this position, and recognizing that that may not be information that they want to have public. So that very clearly, I do want that will not be public. I want to make sure that we protect the privacy of our applicants so that anyone can apply and feel comfortable doing so. Another example of something we might not want to be public is discussion around interview questions. We wouldn't want the candidates to know what those questions are before they come into the room. So those are two examples I can think of right now where we wouldn't want any advanced or other eyes on that part of the process. What else can I tell you?
Nina,
Yes.
have we concluded, or has it been concluded that it will just be the board participating on this committee? Could you speak to that?
Yeah. In the past, we have had other participants on the selection committee. I haven't had a chance to talk to everyone about how we want to do that. I have heard a lot of voices on it. Many of the voices are that because the library board is the sole manager and sole what's the word I'm looking for? I guess manager really sums it up. We manage the director, we supervise the director, we're responsible for the director to succeed or fail. And therefore, and no one else gets a vote on whether we hire a director or anything else. So in that sense, the board has a lot of responsibility. Whether other voices are helpful in leading up to that, I think I'm just going to keep talking to people and seeing what that could look like. So, and I haven't been able to talk to Mark about it yet either because of his schedule and his responsibilities that he has right now too.
Nina, could you talk about timeline a little bit, please?
Yeah, that's where I was headed.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. The other item I wanted to talk about before I get to timeline is I have spoken to John Keister to hear what he had to say about the last search process. We do have the option of using him again if we so like to. I believe, I don't have the language in front of me, but the contract stated that we have a year from acceptance to trigger another search using John Keister, and that date is June 10th. So as of right now, and this is also something I haven't been able to talk to everybody about, I believe we will move forward not using John Keister, seeing how the recruiting goes. We have the time to go through an entire recruitment process, and maybe even then some, looking at around 12 weeks to do an entire process. If for some reason we're not getting the candidates we want, we're not seeing any traction, we're having difficulty, I think we can absolutely always have that option available to us. So again, and so timeline, we're looking at finalizing recruitment materials this week, maybe next. I know the staff is helping freshen up the brochure that was that we had all looked at beforehand. And so thank you to Deb and Diana, I think, and anyone else I don't know who's been helping on that. We appreciate your efforts in helping us present the best case for the library. The board will have the final review of that before it's released. Then we will start advertising. I believe we have about a 4-week application period. Based on how many applicants you get, that could be extended or not extended, depending. Then you would want to around a 2-week screening period, and you would start a 2-week interviewing period after that. So minimal 8 weeks. I'd put 12 weeks to make myself feel better about trying to schedule all that and making sure that we all have time to have as many conversations as we feel are needed and appropriate at that point. And then just going through some of the activities that will, clearly have to happen. As I stated, all the board will all be involved in selection and interviewing. We'll be reviewing the job description and confirming that. There will be a discussion about setting performance objectives, core competencies, key attributes for the ideal candidate, which I have a little more on that later. We will advertise, we'll have to develop interview questions, receive applications, review those applications, schedule the interviews, interview the candidates, check references, select a candidate, and then offer the position. So it's quite a bit to do in the next 12 weeks. I know we're all up to the task and eager to get started. And one of the things that I wanted to do today, and of course, always willing to hear from anybody else, other board members on this, but I did ask Deb for special permission to reach out directly to the staff and ask them for their feedback on the top 3 traits that they thought would be important in a director. I am certain that they have had to answer this question more times than they would like. I am a new board member. I did not want to hear this. I could get this information from a lot of places, but I would get it through someone else's interpretation. And I wanted to make sure that that we heard from the staff directly without any sort of bias. And I had 11 staff members respond eventually. And I put them on the spot, so I apologize for that. But I did sort of want in the very beginning for us to hear those voices and then be able to take that with us as we do our tasks and reviewing before we did the final review of our materials. So just a quick rundown of traits that they thought would be important. Almost everyone referenced library experience. Some wanted an MLS, some didn't. Or I shouldn't say didn't, but didn't reference it or didn't make the top 3, I guess. I will not assume that. But library experience was quite universal. From there, I think there's a distinction, many made a distinction between leadership qualities and managerial qualities, and many want a leader, not a manager. Empathy and integrity were qualities that were listed. An appreciation of the staff and willingness to allow the staff to do their jobs. Willingness to work hard and jump in at any task. Communication up and down was noted. business and financial acumen was noted. And one of my personal favorites, a reader, which I did enjoy that feedback. As someone who just finished a book this morning, that one spoke to me a little bit. And so when I sort of read this list, what really jumped out to me, and I know one of the things that we've all been working on is finding common ground. And for me, this list essentially encapsulates everything that I have been thinking and researching and when I try to find a list of qualities and traits that I would want, all of these things are on my list too.
Nina?
Yes.
My understanding, because I joined the board when you did, was that in the past, Jamie Marcus at the State Library has been helpful in framing or at least vetting how some of these issues about what would be helpful, because he's got a broader experience. Have you had a chance at all to talk with him, or do you think that it'd be beneficial as we go into this process I know he knows that we're going to be looking. Are you planning on reaching out, wanting one of us to reach out to him?
I have Jamie's on my list of people. I'm trying to only call one person a day at this point.
Regular job, I know.
I do have another job. So I have had a lot of conversations at the beginning, but I am sort of trying to just remember that there is time to continue to have these conversations. And I know Jamie's been very helpful in finding places to advertise. And so that we will continue to use Jamie at any opportunity that he is willing to help us. And I've spoken with him before, just not particularly on this subject.
Thank you.
Is there anything else anybody would like to know about at this moment? So I think the next step is recruitment materials and finalizing those, and then the beginnings of advertising. And I would say that getting this position description and materials out as far as and as wide as we can. We know this library has numerous advantages to other libraries at this moment. We have excellent funding. We have a foundation that supports us. We have a friends group that is dynamic. We have an amazing staff. We have so many things going for us. We're in one of the most beautiful places in the world, in my opinion. We can provide some housing. This is a job in a post-COVID world that could be really exciting for someone. So I hope that we will we will all work together to get this out and published as much as we can.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Nina. Look forward to, we'll have a monthly, this will be on the agenda every month until we're done. So we'll be talking to you more. Thank you. Moving on to the renewal of the HVAC maintenance contract. Deb, would you have anything particular you'd like to speak to on that?
Only to say it's nice to have the option for a 2-year renewal versus having to go back out and do the whole bidding process, which would have been required, and it was required the last time around because of the size of the contract. But Keith Gingrey has reviewed the option for renewal. I think he's still on if he would like to speak about that, but we are beyond happy with with our current contractors. So just a minute, I'm trying to unmute at the same time. So we're beyond happy with them.
Yeah, did I just miss the fact that the schedule of compensation was attached? I could not find it.
I think when I sent the original to you, I did not yet have that, and because I just got that. So it's So my apologies. So that was linked in the agenda, which I did not get I might not have gotten the update to you.
Okay.
But it's the same scope of work.
Well, I saw the scope of work, but just the rate of the compensation rates weren't on there.
I can't tell you right off
have
the
they
top of
changed?
my head. I should be able to tell you off the top of my head because I sign their check every month, but
You know if it's changed?
it's not changing.
Oh, it's not changing. Well, that's fine.
It is not changing. They have agreed to continue at their current rate. So they have a monthly contract with us.
Right.
And they also have a really good preventative maintenance plan, that's been in place since we did the whole addition to the library. So we really stay ahead of things.
No, that's perfect. I just having done the vouchers yesterday, I know what, and there was a boiler contract. Actually, it was called a broiler contract, but it was a boiler contract that was paid for work, and that's fine. Their rates are great. If they're keeping it the same, that's my main question.
Yes.
I see Keith's on. Before we go to Keith, I just have one quick question. So we have increased maintenance requirements due to the fact that we've increased circulation for COVID max safety. Is that all falling within the current monthly maintenance contract, or are we incurring additional costs due to COVID?
The costs are mainly coming with increased energy use because we're running the air circulation system with a higher volume of fresh air. So that puts a little more, obviously more stress on the HVAC system, especially in colder temperatures. It may or may not have been what contributed to having to replace the ignition unit on boiler number 2, just because it happened during that cold snap where we were sub-zero, of course. So that's mainly where it's occurring. It's mainly occurring with increased energy costs just to run more fresh air through the facility and have to heat a higher volume of cold air, especially at this time of year.
Okay, thank you. So Keith, did you want to add something?
I had nothing really to add. We do this normally with these types of contracts. We try to always make our contracts 2-year contracts with the option to renew at least for 2 more before we go out to bid again. We try to bid out every 4 years. The difficulty with both of these that you have in front of you, there isn't a lot of competition either in the HVAC area in Jackson or in the cleaning area. So it's usually to your advantage to maintain these contracts as long as you can without rebidding. Because when we rebid, what ends up happening in many of these situations, especially with the cleaning, you get the same bidder just with a higher amount. But we do need to bid every 4 years at least to make sure that there's equal opportunity for all cleaning companies that may be out there. I will point out in both of these, and I just recognize what Peter was mentioning, Exhibit B is missing off of both of them. So we'll find Exhibit B and send it to you. Exhibit A is the scope of work and Exhibit B is the compensation schedule. And for some reason, those are missing off both of these. They exist, they didn't get attached here. But they're both good prices. And it's the prices you've been paying for the last 2 years. So you have the option under the contract to renew for an additional 2 years. And that would be the recommendation.
Okay. Thank you for addressing both of them. All right. Do we have any further discussion on the HVAC contract?
I'll move that we approve it.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? No. Take a vote. I vote aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And very similar is renewal of the cleaning contract next on the agenda. Again, Deb, do you want to add anything to your staff report?
Other than my apologies for not having Schedule B, the compensation, but as Keith mentioned, this is continuing at the same rate that we're paying right now. So let's lock it in before prices go up as soon as we're out of COVID.
Grace, I'll move to approve the cleaning contract. Renewal.
Second. Okay, vote aye. Okay, motion carries. Cleaning contract also approved. FFCRA extension.
Yeah, of
And
course,
this
it's a
is-
federal program.
Yes,
all the
obviously.
Acronyms. I mean, you see, there's something of an explanation there. If you really want more, oops, Julianne might have left the conversation. But bottom line is this is only extending the window of time for people to apply for these benefits. It's not an increase in what they can get in benefits. The county commissioners already extended this window for all other county employees. It makes sense for the library to follow suit and to allow people who need to use this this particular policy to extend that window of time till the end of March. I would say it's especially critical now since we're hitting some of the worst times with respect to COVID, especially in our community. So please extend this.
Makes sense. Are we seeing COVID related leaves? Are there these benefits being utilized, Deb?
They've been used in a variety of ways. Some people have had to do it for childcare. You know, I mean, because their childcare closed down because there was somebody at the childcare that had, you know, I mean, so there have been a variety of instances. Do not ask me. This is a place where I rely on county HR because they understand the nuances of this far better than I do, coming in on the, you know, in the midst of all of that. But people have used it for a variety of reasons.
I don't want to divert the discussion from approving the extension of it. Do we have any further discussion?
No, I'll move to approve it.
Second.
All right, vote aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Merit increase. Okay, the county approved this merit increase, Deb?
They did. They just did a budget amendment on Tuesday. It's their mid-year budget amendment. They do one again at the end of the year typically. But this one included the allocation for staff to receive a merit increase, you know, based on their annual review. They did allow that to be retroactive to the date of their increase because currently everybody's been frozen at their pay regardless of when their review occurred during the year. Right now, the library staff all have the same annual review date, which is everybody's review has to be completed by the end of the calendar year. So they would start their new pay rate effective with the first pay period in this calendar year. The cost, you know, estimating it, looks like it'll be just a little over $25,000, given that we've actually received more in motor vehicle fees than anticipated for the year. We have the bandwidth to make this happen.
I would enthusiastically move to approve this.
Second.
Hey, no further discussion? All right, vote please. I
Aye.
vote aye. Aye.
Aye, aye.
All right, motion
I love-
carries.
I love this. This is great.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, fiscal year 22 budget development. Fortunately, we've been dealing with this. We had quite a bit of discussion and information in December's board meeting and preparation. So we're not getting this all at once, which is outstanding. And so Deb, you've taken it to the next step today. Could you talk to us on that subject, please?
I will, just a second. So I printed out everything except the actual budget. So opening that up for a second. So this is really a first draft. I still definitely have some numbers that I need to look at, some numbers I need to confirm. As I mentioned, we do not yet have specific direction from the county. They have shared that that will likely come out it usually comes out as a memo from the county clerk that comes at the direction of the county commissioners. It comes from the county clerk because that's where all the submissions go to the county clerk, because the county clerk's office is responsible for compiling all departments' budgets into this massive document, which you've ever seen it. It's literally like this thick that goes to county commissioners. So imagine this level of detail across every department, actually even more detail. So anyway, we're expecting that we'll get that next week. It will also include the timeline for when our submission is due to the county clerk's office. Informal discussion amongst the county administrator, county clerk, county treasurer is that likely departments are going to be directed to level budget. I don't have the details on whether that means your bottom line is the same, or in our case, our request for funds has to be the same. So they can be two different things, okay? I don't have clarity on that yet. But there's kind of no way it can be the same bottom line, because every department will have just instituted a merit increase for staff. So everybody's budget will be rising to some extent, right, by that merit increase. They're probably looking for us to keep everything else as level as we can, again, recognizing that health insurance may increase and all of those kinds of things. The most noticeable change inside of this budget is a move to include the Foundation and Friends donation to the library, as well as the expense side. And this is really in response, I just think it makes sense from a taxpayer view and from a transparency viewpoint to see the benefit of the library and to the library of this donation. Not only what the income is, but what it actually funds. So my example would be, just saying, it's been a long time since we've had a line item for adult programs or for children's programs or for any of those kind of programs. And yet there's so much that the foundation and the Friends are able to fund to the library that it's what makes this library more than just mediocre, as Suzanne had mentioned. So it's being able to have these things that just are not true in every library. Like every library does a summer reading program. What the Teton County Library is able to do goes above and beyond just sort of a basic level of services because of the foundation. So we're just really trying to show that in a way, both the income and expense side. So you'll see that in your spreadsheets. And I've tried to highlight where the income is, and then correspondingly, where is the foundation supporting the library. And it's mainly around programs. And then you also see it also supports a number of items with respect to collections, some enhancements around collections. What you'll notice is that is really not funding the basic stuff. So it's not funding staff and it's not funding the facility. So it's funding the stuff that's sort of the icing on the cake, all of the enhancements. So instead of getting what you got in this board meeting, which was a 6-month report of listing of every check written, what you're going to see is your monthly report will simply have the, here's all the areas where we expended money that's related to the foundation. It might take us a little bit to fine tune exactly how we do that. I'm still talking with Pauline about what the best way to get that reimbursement from the foundation is. I don't know if we might consider it. Maybe it's a quarterly, quote unquote, grant request to the foundation. Here are all the expenses the library's incurred related to those programs. Reimburse us, once a quarter. We do not have that nailed down yet, but we will get it nailed down. We still have time for that. I think that's really kind of the biggest piece. Obviously, there's still some numbers that have to be, like I said, that have to be confirmed and double and triple and quadruple checked. I mean, the biggest part is salaries, and that spreadsheet is massive. And I will probably look over that and have other people look over it 3 and 4 times, because that has the biggest impact.
So,
Another, go ahead, Peter.
Go ahead, Grace. No, go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. Another area that still remains to be seen, as I recall it, is our capital reserve. And as I recall, we left that with Kevin, you were taking a look at updated figures for what do we need in the capital reserve, and you were going to utilize county to do that. And that capital reserve plus the small capital equipment are both open items here.
Well, may I, Grace, for a
Yeah,
second?
yeah,
You're
sorry.
touching on a core portion of what I wanted to comment on.
Oh, please do.
Budgeting process, which I think Deb and I will work between now and the next meeting on looking at all of our reserves and what we should be doing. We didn't fund them for the past 2 years on the capital maintenance account. I also want to discuss and potentially have Deb and me bring to the board a consideration on some policies that we have, for example, fines, and whether we, in this environment, should think about our fine policy and whether we should have one, and whether it can be perhaps something that we could either modify or eliminate, and whether that's appropriate or not. There are a number of items. This is a first draft, and I think there are a number of items that, as we get guidance from the county, we will be in a better shape next month to have a fuller discussion about the specifics, if that's all right.
And then that gives us time. So at the next board meeting, we talk specifics. And then when is this typically due to the county?
I believe it's in February.
Sometime end of February, beginning of March. Again, I just don't have that specific timeline, and I'm not sure if anything will change with having yeah, I'm just not sure yet.
Yeah, I guess, Grace, from a process perspective, I would think that we could meet in between, Deb and I can meet if we need to have a special meeting to talk through any kind of changes in philosophy that we have. We could do that in between, but I would anticipate that we would have a budget to approve, subject to Deb's correcting me, at our next meeting. A budget to approve to submit to the county, because we're going to have, our meeting is in the third Thursday of February, and we have a limited number of days in February. And my guess is we're going to require a budget to be submitted within a week after that board meeting.
So given that, we're already without any reserves or small capital expenditures added to this. We're already about at a level basis. So there may need to be scrubbing when you go back and add those items. Will you have done that before the next board meeting, Peter?
I would hope so. I would also think we'd have a better idea of what our remaining fiscal year would show in terms of, are we underperforming or overperforming on our budget, on our expense line on our budget? It's not clear yet. We'll have somewhat more clarity as to what that entails. I'm hoping. It's a lot of work, but we can, that's the goal.
I have another detailed question. What item or what are we leasing for $22,000 that we just started leasing?
That's the copiers. We've been leasing copiers for years. We just never broke it out.
Right.
Thank you. And then one more very small numbers, but just couldn't stand not to ask this question. Our utility rates in general have gone up about 50%. Is that primarily due to rates, or is it a combination of rates and usage? What's driving that increase in utilities?
I do not have specific information about rates. Sorry, my power is on the other side, so I don't know what Lower Valley's rates have been. So I can't speak to that, but a fair amount of it is that issue that I was speaking about earlier, where we're just flat out running more fresh air through the system. And if the system was at, say, 25% fresh air and now it's 50% fresh air, it takes more to heat that volume of cold fresh air than before. So that's the primary driver.
Yeah, that, Grace, it is, there was a slight increase last year. I'm not sure when it took effect in the LVE rates across the county. But this is primarily from what I've looked at in the individual bills that through the voucher process. It's primarily usage and number of BTUs, frankly, that we're pushing through the boiler.
Okay, so that will continue as far as our foreseeable future. Those were my minor questions. I know the numbers are small, but appreciate your inputs on that.
Water and sewer rates may increase in the future as well, as someone who is married to someone talking about that right now.
Well, our water bill last month for the library is $168. So
Yeah, I don't know that, but it is just something to keep on your radar. Clearly at $4,000 a year, it's not a big deal, but at this moment, every dollar counts.
Okay, and last but not least, the reduction in professional services going from about 85 to 22,000. Is that our switch over to the county's pay time card and payroll services? What's the reduction? Or is it
partly that, and it's partly moving our reimbursement for the county. It was a little unclear to me as I was looking at last year's budget submission, where our reimbursement to the county for their for the IT tech. It almost, anyway. But to me, it more appropriately, it's not a professional service. It's part of our personnel salaries. I mean, that's where it's going to live long term. So it made more sense to me to pull it, make sure it wasn't in professional services, and that it's part of our salaries. So that's the way I've budgeted it for fiscal year 22, is it's inside of our personnel salaries. Where that person is, nothing has changed yet in that arena. We have not yet initiated any potential transition there yet. So we're still there. But the other big chunk of it is moving to the Ascentus timekeeper. So the monthly fee for that, it's like $7.58 per individual per month. So $7 times 30 staff, it's $200 versus a couple $1,000. So that's a pretty substantial difference. I mean, we will
more for programmatic issues, more money freed up for programmatic stuff. It's great.
Right. I mean, we will still need touring accounting, even as our new administrative assistant Amber ramps up her responsibilities. We'll still need touring for things like bank reconciliations. I mean, it's just good
practice
management to have that third eye looking at everything.
Okay, thank you.
They're doing a great job. All right, sorry, Dina.
No, so the salary line item, I assume, is budgeting. We are not, we don't have full staff, as you talked about. Are you budgeting for a full year of salaries, or are you sort of trying to game that out a little bit on anticipated hire dates? Or
I budgeted for a full year of a new director. I budgeted for a full year of a new services manager. I budgeted for a full year of, sorry, it's confusing. It says, I wrote out 2 and then put in parentheses 3, but I think it's actually 3 library assistants, seniors. So I budgeted for a full year of those folks. I mean, I'm sitting there, that's July 1st. I'm super hopeful by the time we can all be outdoors and do those kinds of things that we're not sitting in this red phase of COVID, and that we start to see foot traffic. it, you know, it just pains me not to see people in here. I mean, it pains me, you know, I mean, I want people in here in the worst way. But I get why they're not coming in. But we need to plan as if we're going to have the doors, we're going to be fully open in summertime. I really think we need to plan that way.
I don't disagree. It has to get better.
Oh, it has to.
Okay, any further discussion on budget? FY22 budget. All right, we don't need a motion on that today, so we can move on to payment of library vouchers. Peter.
I went through quite a few of them. I continued to appreciate the fact that it was a smooth transition from Laura Petrix to Amber, our new administrative assistant. And there were a few minor issues, nothing that needs to take the attention of the board. Deb and I worked through them all, and I have a good understanding, and they are just fine. We have, I would say one thing, there's an effort underway to finally clean up any credit cards that are still in names of former employees, people who are no longer with us. And I think Deb is hopefully doing that, hopes to accomplish that by the end of next month, no later than the next month. It's not, these are not being used by those folks, but their names are still on accounts, especially for subscription renewals and so forth. But I think it's down to a handful, and it's easy to switch out.
So Peter, in the past, we've talked about adding payroll, maybe as just a single line item to that report out.
It was part, and I don't know if it made it to the board packet this month.
Not yet.
I looked through it all, and so it may be a timing issue here. I realized that this morning when I looked at the agenda, and I apologize. That's my doing, because I should have picked that up.
Okay, so we will be adding that.
Yeah,
Good.
no, it's definitely part of the voucher process.
Okay. All right. Well, if we have no.
I would move to approve the payment of the library vouchers.
Oh, payment. I'm sorry. I second. Vote.
I say yes.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right. I think we're ready to adjourn at
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, adjourning this meeting. Thank you all.
I think you need a motion
I'll move it.
as the
Want to second it,
secretary.
Nina?
I second.
Okay.
Vote. Aye.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Deb. Thanks, everybody
Thank you.
else who's on the call.
Thank you all. Thank you for being patient. Sorry for my ineptness.
We always forget a motion to adjourn. It's the glue that keeps us together.
Yeah, without that, what would we do? Thank you all.
Thank you.